Good morning, everybody. It's Friday morning, almost Shabbos, and we're getting ready for Pesach. We've been moving closer, sharing different ideas having to do with Passover. Of course, one interesting idea that has to do with Passover, also I want to relate this to Shabbos, is that when we read the Haggadah, next week, next Saturday night, we read the Passover Haggadah. If you read the Haggadah from the beginning to end, you will notice that there is a glaring omission in the Passover Haggadah. In fact, it might be the greatest literary omission in history. Whose name is not there? Who's not mentioned in this story of the Exodus in any way? Ready for this one? Moshe. It's not there. His name is written once in a very unfocused on way, a very incidental way. But he's not in the story. He's not part of the story. How could it be? Moshe, the one who led the Jewish people out of Egypt, is not part of the story of the Haggadah, of the Passover Seder? So let's look at this week's Parsha for a minute. If you open up the Torah in the beginning of the book of Leviticus, this is the first Parsha, the first Torah portion in the book of Leviticus. You'll notice something very interesting. The first word, Vayikra, it's spelled Vav, Yud, Kuf, Resh, Aleph. And if you look in the Torah itself, you'll notice that the Aleph for Vayikra is a mini Aleph. It's written in miniature form. It's not written like the rest of the letters. In order to be a kosher Torah scroll, it has to be written this way. Why is that? So there's a backstory that the Medrash tells us. That Hashem was dictating the Torah to Moshe, telling him to write every word. And he says, okay, Moshe, write Vayikra Hashem el Moshe, Vayikra el Moshe, and God appeared to Moshe. And Moshe says, that's a little bit, it's going to sound a little bit arrogant, like God's appearing to me. How about if we just write Vayikar, which means God happened upon, in a similar way that we see later on in the Torah, that when God comes to the non-Jewish prophet Bilam, it says Vayikar. Hashem happened upon, chanced upon Bilam. And Hashem says, no, I want you to write Vayikra, write it. And God lovingly called out to Moshe. So Moshe was a little still uncomfortable with it, so he decides he has to listen to what Hashem says. He's going to write Vayikra, which means Hashem called out lovingly and knowingly and purposefully to Moshe, but he writes the Aleph very small, so that it looks like it says Vayikar, and God happened upon or chanced upon Moshe. It was a sign of Moshe's great humility. So for the very, very same reason, we're told that Moshe is the humblest of all people. For the same reason that Moshe doesn't want the Aleph to be large, indicating that he has some special, unique relationship with God, perhaps that's one of the reasons why Moshe's name is not part of the Haggadah story, of the Passover story, because no one should think for a minute that it was Moshe that took the Jewish people out of Egypt. It was Hashem, it was God. Moshe was just an agent. And that's the important lesson that I'm trying to bring out over here, is that humility doesn't mean that I think lowly of myself, that I lack self-esteem, that I don't appreciate who I am. Moshe was the greatest prophet that ever lived. He spoke face to face directly to Hashem. He received the Torah directly from Hashem. He knew who he was. He wasn't a shmata. He didn't think that he was a nobody. He didn't suffer from lack of self-esteem. He understood his incredible role and his importance, but he also understood that everything that we have, every gift that we have, every talent, every quality, every trait, everything that's special about us is just a gift from Hashem. And what does it mean? It doesn't make us better. It doesn't make us more important. It just obligates us more. It gives us more of a responsibility to take those gifts and take those unique things, those talents that Hashem has given us, and use them to be an agent to Hashem's blessing in this world. Be that vessel through which God's godliness can come into the world by using those special talents that Hashem gave me. So Moshe, who has this incredible humility, writes that Aleph, tiny little miniature Aleph in the beginning, because he doesn't want to take credit for the gifts that Hashem gave him. And that's the same reason why Moshe's name is not in the Haggadah. It wasn't me. It wasn't Moshe. It was Hashem. Moshe was just the agent. Think about that. Discuss it. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos.